Good morning, my dear students, and welcome back to the class on active and passive voice. The previous classes we have dealt with all the three tenses. We had learned how a present tense can be converted from active into passive voice. We had seen how a past tense can be converted from active into passive voice. And we had also seen how a future tense can be converted from active into passive voice. In today's class, we are going to see some basic rules that you need to keep in mind when you are converting an active voice into passive voice. There are some rules that you need to keep in mind, and in today's class we are going to deal with three important rules that you must keep in mind when you are converting an active into passive voice. So we begin with rule number 1. Sentences that have transitive verb can only be converted to passive voice. Remember once again, sentences that have transitive verb can only be converted to passive voice. Now you must be wondering what you mean by the term called transitive verb. Transitive verb means a verb that accepts one or more objects. So that's what you mean by the term called transitive verb. So once again, the rule number 1, sentences that have transitive verb can only be converted to passive voice. And you remember the meaning of the word called, definition of the word called transitive verb. Transitive verb means a verb that accepts only one or more object, which means in a sentence there must be an object. Then only that sentence can be converted from active into passive voice. So I'll give an example. He writes a letter. Subject we have got he, verb write, and we have got an object called a letter. So this sentence can be converted into passive voice because this sentence has got an object, or the verb accepts an object in the sentence. As the verb accepts an object, it is known as transitive verb and it can be converted to passive voice, and it will be a letter is written by him. So this is a basic rule. A sentence that must have transitive verb, then only it can be converted to passive voice. If a sentence does not have an object, it cannot be converted into passive voice. So remember, that is the basic rule number 1. Now moving on to rule number 2. Sentences that have intransitive verb cannot be converted to passive voice. That's the opposite of rule number 1. Sentences that have intransitive verb cannot be converted to passive voice. I'll give an example. The child is crying. Subject is the child, verb is crying, and it has no object. As the verb does not accept an object, it is known as intransitive verb. So what happens? The sentence cannot be converted to passive voice. So number 1, sentences that have transitive verb can be converted to passive voice. Rule number 2, sentences that do not have intransitive verb cannot be converted to passive voice. I hope the first 2 rules are clear for you. Now moving on to rule number 3. When the transitive verb has direct object and indirect object, either of the object can become the subject. Which means when the transitive verb has got one or more object, which means the transitive verb has got a direct object and indirect object, either of the object can become a subject. I'll give an example now. My father gave me a pen. It is an active voice and it has got 2 objects. It means direct object and indirect object. Subject is my father, verb is gave, direct object is a pen, indirect object is me. As there are 2 objects, that they are direct and indirect object, anyone can become the subject in the passive voice. Either me can become subject or a pen can become subject in the passive voice. I'll give you that. I was given a pen by my father, which means in this particular sentence me became the subject. The second example, a pen was given to me by my father. So this sentence has got direct and indirect object. Direct object is a pen, indirect object is me. So when there are two objects, that is they are the direct and indirect object, anyone can become the subject in the passive voice. So these are the three rules that you need to understand today. We'll continue with the rules regarding the active and the passive voice. I hope you have understood the first three rules regarding active and passive voice. Continue to study well. Thank you.